Introducing Instagram Teen Accounts, a new way to keep your teens safer as they grow, like making sure they've got the right gear for riding.
Knee pads.
Check.
And helmet.
Done. See you, Dad.
New Instagram Teen Accounts, automatic protections for who can contact your teen and the content they can see.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 300 programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warmer friendly hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts, and a podcast that today is brought to you by DraftKings and Vote Yes on Prop 27. Prop 27 is working to get Californians online and able to legally sports bet if they are over the age of 21. Over half the country is able to bet online. We've got so many states in which you're now able to. The folks out there in states like Kansas, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, you're able to go down the list. They're able to. Meanwhile, California has been stuck in the cold. They're dealing with shady bookies. It's not a good situation, and Prop 27 is working to change that. So vote yes on Prop 27, and I do think that we are going to be voting yes on a terrific podcast today. As joining me in segment number 2, we are very lucky. The prop queen herself, Ariel Epstein. She does amazing work over there at MLB Network. She did a great job all year long with the show Pregame Spread, and I know that she's still doing some social work over there with MLB Network, contributing for some of them with some spots as well. So she does amazing work. On top of that, for those of you guys that like football, she does that along with baseball over at Yahoo Sportsbook as well. I'm going to be talking with her just on how she is gauging some of these player props right now during the postseason, because it is a little bit of a different animal since you do have guys that get yanked from games a little bit earlier, and she is the prop queen for a reason. She does a great job. Will be able to unearth a lot of value on that front. We're also going to be talking with her about the 2-game twos that we're going to be seeing in the ALDS as well, so that is going to be a whole lot of fun. And then in the final segment, going to give you guys picks and analysis on both games on the betting board for this MLB Thursday as we touch them all. First things first, always do love to be able to answer your Twitter questions on this podcast. If you got one or two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at unit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM. Naming does not matter, so as per usual, please send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to find whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. The one question that I did get from you guys is if something like we saw in the Braves versus Phillies game where you've got a long rain delay, if that affects my handicapping at all. And the reason it does not is just because every single person responds to a rain delay differently. You get some guys that they get completely thrown off, some guys are not affected at all, and some guys that they come out a little bit better. It's just sort of like, to use a real life example of this, if you're working for a business, they want you to give some sort of a sales pitch, some sort of a presentation, what have you, at like say noon, and then you get a call at the last minute saying, oh, your noon pitch is now going to be at 3 o'clock. Some folks do a good job of taking that extra time and they make it better. Some people have their routine thrown off and it makes it a little bit worse. Some people are just not affected altogether, and it's really, really, really hard to tell. I keep things status quo personally. I don't think that it necessarily affects one team more than the other. Hitters get affected a little bit, pitchers get affected a little bit. So I do think that that's one of those things that I have a tough time gauging personally, and I think that a lot of people would be in agreement because there is really no algorithm for how long a rain delay goes on and how that affects pitchers, what have you. I tend to lean towards it maybe presenting a little bit more scoring because pitchers are such a creature of habit, but with that said, everyone responds to it differently, so I keep my handicapping relatively the same and did so for that Braves versus Phillies game. So hopefully that clears that up for you in case if we get another rain delay during this postseason. But let's take a look back at what we got in the NLDS games for Wednesday and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Since the Greg Peterson experience is now 5 days a week if you're out there on the East Coast, Monday through Friday, midnight to 3 a.m. Eastern Time on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. I do have to do this a little bit earlier, and because of a 3-hour rain delay, we've got the Braves and the Phillies game, not quite final, but looking like the Braves should pull this one out. I am doing this after 7 innings. Braves up by a count of 3-0 in a game that has just completely unraveled for the Philadelphia Phillies. It was a good start from Zach Wheeler. Don't look at the final line of giving up 3 runs in 6 innings. The hit by pitcher Ronald Acuna Jr. certainly was unfortunate, but a ball that meddles, and it should have probably been knocked down by Rhys Hoskins. That opened the floodgates for the Atlanta Braves, and Kyle Wright, well, Mr. Wright, assuming the Braves pull this out, they are now 17-1, the Braves are, in his last 18 starts, 6 scoreless innings. He was solid. A.J. Minter from there comes in for a scoreless inning, and the Philadelphia Phillies relied upon Andrew Bellotti to hold down the fort. And for the Braves, Olsen really been coming up clutch for this team recently, and as I do this right now, it is going to be an over between the San Diego Padres and the LA Dodgers. Vintage Clayton Kershaw came out giving up 3 runs in the first 3 innings, including a home run going deep for the San Diego Padres, Manny Machado. First of this series, Yu Darvish has had his struggles as well, giving up home runs to Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, and Trey Turner down for what? I'll have a little bit more on this game when it comes to the Greg Peterson experience, and taking a look forward to the NLDS as well on that show. You'll be getting the NLDS Game 3 previews on the podcast tomorrow, but also in terms of Dodgers versus Padres, I had to do this a little bit before Game 1 wrapped up, and the Dodgers covered the run line in that one by a count of 5-3. And just keep this in mind with the LA Dodgers, 111 wins during the regular season. Now, technically 112 as I do this if you include the postseason win. Just 16 have been by 1 run. This team has been amazing on the run line. And Mike Clevenger, well, he was not amazing, giving up 5 runs, 4 of which were earned in 2 2/3 innings. Now, credit to the bullpen of the Padres. Did have Pierce Johnson give up nothing in his 2 scoreless innings. Steven Wilson, 1 1/3 innings scoreless. Tim L. and Nick Martinez all had a scoreless inning, but for the San Diego Padres, Evan Phillips, Bruce Gratterall, Alex Vesia, and Chris Martin, they all combined for 4 scoreless innings on the bullpen after Julio Urias gave up 3 runs in 5 innings, including a home run to Will Myers. He's actually been a very good hitter on the road, so something that you do want to watch out for, especially with the Dodgers having no Craig Kimbrell on the roster. I do think that that is a very good thing for them, and overall this postseason, we have been seeing quite a few road teams being able to come through and quite a few underdogs in general, as assuming that the Atlanta Braves get it done, favorites are 7-7. Obviously, we don't know how that Dodgers game went quite yet because, well, it's 3-3 as I record this, so we shall see what happens there, and I'll have that for you guys on VSiN. But we also have been noticing a relatively good split between overs and unders, as well as the unders overall this postseason have been 7-8, assuming that the Dodgers game goes over and assuming that the Braves versus Phillies game goes under. So 7 unders, 8 overs. So that's what we're right now seeing in the postseason. And that's a little bit of a taste as to what we got on Wednesday. Coming up next, we're going to be talking with Ariel Epstein about gauging player props for those of you guys looking at some strikeout props, some total outs props for this postseason. Then we're going to be diving into the 2 ALDS games that currently we're slated to have for Thursday. Might be a little bit of weather involving that Yankees versus Guardians game, but we shall break it down nonetheless with Ariel Epstein of Yahoo Sportsbook and MLB Network next here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
We're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this guest. You know her better as a prop queen because it is Ariel Epstein joining me. She does amazing work over there at MLB Network. On top of that, Yahoo Sportsbook. And I know that she's done some work the past few NBA seasons over at NBA TV as well. So for those of you guys looking for football, baseball, and basketball, she's got all 3 covered. She's done a great job all year long taking a look at strikeout props and so much more. And it's very easy to follow Ariel on Twitter. Just her first and last name, Ariel Epstein, all together. together. And Ariel, it is always great to have you aboard. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me as always. Great time of year.
It is a great time of year. And Ariel, it is just tremendous to be able to take a look at postseason baseball. But the one thing that is a little bit tougher, I'm sure that you experience this with doing a lot of player props, is just you get a little bit more of a quick hook with these managers. It's a little bit more difficult for pitchers to lend length because typically in a spot where a pitcher would be allowed to go in like the fourth, fifth inning, there is a little bit more of a tendency for these pitchers to get pulled out of games. And how do you gauge this in terms of your strikeout props and just more of your player props in general? Because I do think that this is really the toughest time of year to fire in on some of these player props because there's a little bit more uncertainty, and every manager, it seems like, have their own rhyme or reason for keeping a guy in / pulling a guy a little bit earlier than expected.
It's definitely something hard to predict, especially hard because the numbers are off from the regular season. For example, Zach Wheeler's strikeout prop was as high as 7.5 at the midway point of the year. Now you're seeing him drop to 5.5, even 4.5, where it moved. Those are things that are hard to account for because you haven't seen some of these players' props that low. Yes, you would think there's a short leash. The way that I try to manage the short leash best, looking at how much the bullpen usage was in the game prior, if there's going to be a day off the next day, if they had a day off the day before, trying to just take all those things into account. Also looking at the lineup still. Teams like the Guardians have a very low K rate. I wouldn't go and bet that on an ace to bet an under like Garrett Cole, especially with Cole at home. That's why I stayed away. However, for someone like Nestor Cortes, who will be pitching in Game 2 for the Yankees, he might be worth a look. Now, Cortes is going to be another pitcher who's usually a 5.5 for a strikeout prop. He's likely going to be a 4.5 for this game because the Guardians have the lowest K rate in the league, and Cortes against teams with low K rates tend to have a lower K rate against those kinds of lineups. In addition to the fact that the Yankees got lucky with Garrett Cole pitching for a majority of the game and not needing to use the bullpen as much. Those are just all factors you have to take into consideration with K-props.
There is a lot that you do need to consider with it, and I do think that it is interesting that you bring up Nestor Cortes because something that I've noticed with him all season long with the New York Yankees is that has been significantly better when he has been in the Bronx rather than on the road, especially in terms of giving up the home run ball, which is why he has been able to deliver a little bit more length in New York. How much do you play into account the home and road splits this time of year? Because we've actually noticed very early on this postseason that the road teams have been having quite a bit of success. That really played itself out during the wild card round. You did see the Atlanta Braves drop Game 1 against the Philadelphia Phillies. As we are recording this, we are going to see what happens in Game 2. That is still TBD as we record this, but I do think that that's always something of consideration as well, especially with the temperatures getting a little bit cooler in places like Cleveland and New York.
There are home road splits that do still matter. Now, granted, yes, we have seen that some of the Phillies pitchers did pitch well on the road in St. Louis. However, I still am going to take into account how important the home road splits could be for teams. The Guardians starter Tristan McKenzie, he's one of those pitchers that's just tend to pitch better on the road, at home than he does on the road. So he's somebody that maybe in that Game 3 situation where the Guardians will get to play in Cleveland, you can assess him in the same way you would have assessed him if he was in the regular season. If someone like McKenzie is on the road, then I may not be as inclined to go bet the Guardians. However, the Guardians in Game 3 could be very enticing to me because of how well McKenzie pitched at home. It's more just about taking certain pitchers into account. The home road splits can make you like a game more or hate a game more. And certain pitchers, it's about matchups too. Yu Darvish, for example. Now, granted, I'm saying this and this is going to air probably after the game, so I might look like an idiot. However, I usually fade Yu Darvish on the road. Yet against the Dodgers this year, the Dodgers have a 608 OPS against Darvish, which is a lower OPS than any team in baseball overall on the season. Whatever it is with Darvish, he's figured out the Dodgers lineup well enough to pitch against them and allow a max of 2 earned runs a game through 3 of 4 starts he had against LA this year. Most pitchers can't do that, especially when you're Darvish who struggles on the road. Because of the matchup, it let me bet Padres on the run line. Hopefully it hits. But usually if it was Padres with Yu Darvish on the road against anyone else, I'd say fade Darvish. Those are the home road splits. They are still important in factoring into the handicap. It's just not the whole handicap.
And I think that you point out something very important with Yu Darvish as well, because I took the Padres on the money line as well. So if you're going to look like a fool when this comes out, I will gladly join you on that bandwagon. As Ariel Epstein is joining me right here on the podcast, because what I had taken a look at with Yu Darvish is, his home and road splits, he's been able to do significantly better at home rather than on the road since getting to San Diego. But I also saw, including that wild card start against the New York Mets, that in his last 5 road starts, he had given up a combined 3 earned runs. And it's not like he was facing off against a bunch of schlubs or anything like that. I go back to him firing 8 scoreless against the Seattle Mariners. That was a supreme performance for him as well. And I do think that is something that needs to be given a little bit of credence to as well. And I think that is a very good point to bring up in terms of the Yankees versus Guardians game, because with the Yankees, I'm sure that you would agree with me, they had their second half struggles, but towards the back half of the month of September, it looked like they were getting a little bit healthier. They played quite a bit better, and you're able to really say the same for the Cleveland Guardians. September was their best month out of the year. They came into the series playing some very good baseball, and I do think that makes a handicap a little bit more intriguing for Guardians versus Yankees on Thursday, because I personally am going to wait this out a little bit more. I would like to see just more and more money pile in on the Yankees, because I felt like on the opener of more around minus 125, minus 130, that you had some good value. I just have a fear that this is going to be like Yankees minus 150 plus when this closes, and that's going to lend a little bit more value to the Guardians if you wait this one out.
Yeah, you could wait it out. Cortez has won each of his 2 starts versus the Guardians this season. He allowed 3 runs in 12 1/3 combined innings, a 2.19 ERA. So he has had success against him. And what's even standing out, too, is the fact that Shane Bieber didn't even face the Yankees this year. Bieber, though, he's 0-2 with a 9.45 ERA against New York with 5 home runs allowed in the last 3 seasons. That dates back to 2019, including his Game 1 of 2022 wildcard series where he allowed 7 runs in 4 2/3 innings. It's because you probably are going to see a lot more of, Bieber's a strikeout pitcher, and the Yankees really aren't much of a strikeout-prone team. So those are some things to take into consideration. The team that the day I'd probably back the Guardians the most is going to be the Tristan McKenzie start in Cleveland in Game 3. That would be your opportunity to get the Yankees on the road in a spot where a starter like McKenzie has been absolutely terrific when he's been pitching in the home games this year, going at least 6-7 innings a game, 1 to 2 runs allowed. The thing that Cleveland also has going in their advantage, if something does happen with Bieber, Cleveland's bullpen's thrown 13 1/3 scoreless innings so far in the playoffs, allowing just 5 hits in 42 at-bats. That's a 119 batting average. So Cleveland's bullpen is still something that you can rely on if they do have to pull a starter early.
Yep, with the bullpen of the Cleveland Guardians, best ERA post-All-Star break this season, and the Yankees, they've got a top 5 bullpen all season long themselves. I know that there's been a bad rap out there on Clay Holmes, and Holmes has been acting up a little bit more towards the back half of the season. No doubt, Aroldis Chapman has been the news, but let's call it what it is. Aroldis Chapman, not necessarily the guy that you wanted to see going out there for the Yankees to start with, so I don't take that as being a big giant loss for the New York Yankees. And we're speaking of good bullpens, and that leads us to the other game that we're going to be seeing on Thursday, as Ariel Epstein does amazing work over there at MLB Network, along with Yahoo Sports, is joining me on the podcast, and that's Mariners versus Astros, and just such an intriguing spot in general, because the way that the Seattle Mariners lost the game in Game 1, it's just as deflating gets. If you have any reason why Robbie Ray was in that game, you let me know, because I've yet to figure out one. And I think that there's a lot of people that are figuring out why in the world Robbie Ray was in that game. And clearly it came up snake eyes for the Seattle Mariners, but a guy that came up aces for the Seattle Mariners a little bit earlier this postseason, Luis Castillo, he's going to be on the bump for them. Framber Valdez, who had that incredible streak of like 25 straight starts where he went 6+ innings with 3 earned runs or fewer allowed, is going to be going for the Astros. Interestingly, Framber Valdez has not been quite the same at home rather than on the road, but I really worry about the Seattle Mariners getting up for this game. I honestly do think that having that day off on Wednesday helps them out a little bit, but I personally look at the Astros in this spot. They have owned the Seattle Mariners for a very long time. Wouldn't want to get frisky on a run line just because this is a low total of 6.5. I do think that both of these pitchers perform well, but where do you stand on this game?
So bad for Seattle's chances going forward, especially because I do have the Astros to win this in four games. You might even see a sweep. I was debating between sweep and 4 games, yet they were both at 325 plus 325, so I figured I'll give Seattle 1. Seattle's lost 31 of its 38 games in Houston. That's yikes. And looking at Valdez's numbers against the Mariners, they're very good. 5-0, 1.94 ERA with 0 home runs allowed in 9 games, 7 starts. He is 1-0, 3.95 against them in 2 starts this year. The Mariners are hitting the heck out of the ball with the 297 batting average. However, now you're going to get a pitcher that pitches well against you. The only thing about Valdez that scares me is his 2021 playoff numbers, where his ERA was near an 8 last year. 2020, though, ERA just below a 2. So Valdez does have it in him to have a good start. Castillo just one career start against Houston, and that was when he was with the Reds back in 2019. He beat the Astros, allowing 2 runs in 6 innings. But I have to say maybe you go first 5 under in this spot, get a good 5 innings out of Valdez, a good 5 innings out of Castillo, then see what the bullpens do. I give the Astros a slight bullpen advantage, even though the Mariners do have the 8th best bullpen ERA in baseball. It's just a really tough thing to come back from, especially when you're up against a powerhouse like the Astros, who you just seem to never be able to beat in Houston. Going back to Toronto, maybe the Blue Jays get 1 game over the Astros. Obviously, I would hope for that because of my best in 4 series. But yeah, I'm with you here. It takes a very strong mindset when you are up by so much to end up coming back. I've seen it so many times in sports where a team's up by 3-4 runs. They think they have it in the bag. They end up giving up this crazy walk-off. They lose the game, and they get absolutely demolished the next day. We've seen it so many times in sports, so I am very concerned for the Mariners. It's kind of like when you lose a bad bet on a bad beat. You're on this hot streak, you lose a bet on a bad beat, and then you just go on this absolute cold streak. That's how I feel for the Mariners right now.
I have been there. Don't worry. I have had that happen to me time and time again. I'm sure that we can both relate on that front. And on top of that, with Houston Astros, number 1 bullpen in terms of ERA as well. And I know you were pointing out the first 5. Typically, I've got trepidation with these guys being able to go deep, but in this circumstance, I do think that both of these guys are going to be able to go 5+ innings. I think the Castillo is going to be rock solid. I think the Framber Valdez is going to be rock solid. I just give the overall advantage, and just in terms of offensive consistency in general, to the Houston Astros. So I completely agree with you on your handicap of that. And Ariel, I know you're just filling up the box score right now because you're doing a little bit of everything. You do amazing work over there at Yahoo Sports, taking a look at both the MLB and the NFL. And hey, I know that the NBA is getting started up as well. I know that last season you did a great job on that front as well. I know you're still making contributions over there at MLB Network as well. You were doing a great job all throughout the regular season with the show Pregame Spread with Matt Vasgersian. So you do a little bit of everything, and you do so also well. So let the good people at home know they're able to follow you on social media and just everything that's going on.
Definitely follow along at Ariel Epstein on Twitter, Ariel Epstein on Instagram, and Yahoo Sportsbook on Twitter, MLB Network as well. Ariel
does amazing work. For those of you guys that love football, she does a great job there. For those of you guys that like basketball, I'm sure that she's going to be doing quite a bit on that front as well. And anyone that loves baseball, which is probably why you're listening to this podcast, Ariel's been doing an amazing job with her strikeout props all season long. It is always great to have her aboard. Big thanks, Ariel, for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family podcast. Coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on both ALDS games for this Thursday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family podcast. It is always a pleasure to get Ariel Epstein aboard. She does amazing work taking a look at so many different player props. I know that strikeout props are really in her wheelhouse, but on top of that, just does an amazing job taking a look at the great game of baseball. And for those of you guys that like the NFL as well, she does a great job of that over at Yahoo Sports. Always a pleasure to get her aboard. Big thanks, Ariel. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on both games on the MLB betting board for this Thursday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at Unit_81. We're going to be going with Mariners versus Astros first, and then Yankees versus Guardians. So let's dive in with 951, 952 on the betting board. The Seattle Mariners are on the road facing off against the Houston Astros as Framber Valdez is going to be going for Houston, and Luis Castillo is on the bump for the Mariners, and the Mariners are finding themselves as underdogs, anywhere between plus 135 and plus 140. Meanwhile, anywhere between minus 147 and minus 155 is your number on Houston, and we're between 6.5 and 7 is your total on the 7. Under is minus 120, the over is even on the 6.5. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. And we're going to do my DK Nation pick in this game because, well, with the Yankees versus the Guardians game, we don't know if there is going to be a game, so I want to ensure that I'm giving you guys an actual pick that is is going to be valid for Thursday. So I'm going to be taking a look at the total in this one. I said my total is 6.3. I'm going to be taking a look at the under, whether you got a 6.5 or a 7, but that said, I set the Astros minus 164 on the money line. I do think that this is going to be a low-scoring game, even though I'm sure you're going to be able to get a good plus price on the run line. I would much rather go with the money line rather than the run line. These are games that they get a little bit more intense. Houston has had a little bit of a tough time on the run line all season long, so I'm going to play it safe, and I am going to go with the money line. We saw that on full display in Game 1 of this series. That's why you might want to take the money line rather than the run line. And for Framber Valdez, he did have a few hiccups towards the back half of the season. The 6 runs that he gave up to the Tampa Bay Rays, the less than stellar performance against Baltimore is something that stands out. And weirdly, Framber Valdez has been significantly better on the road than he has been at home. He's got a home ERA of a 3.54 compared to a 2.27 road ERA, but he also at home has given up 3 home runs at 86 and a third innings. He's one of the best pitchers in all of baseball at being able to limit hard contact, and I think that that's big in this ordeal because you do have a Seattle Mariners bunch that they're really feast or famine. Since the All-Star break, they actually have the worst batting average among American League teams, but they also rank number 2 in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis, as you've got someone like our good friend Big Dumper Cal Raleigh, who had 26 home runs during the regular season. Carlos Santana, who had 19 home runs during the regular season, but both of these guys hit below 220, and Eugenio Suarez, he's got right around 335 on base. He had a home run a little bit earlier in this series and in the postseason, so he's been able to do a solid job on that front. You do have someone like an Julio Rodriguez, who hit a 275 this season, north of 25 home runs. J.P. Crawford's able to move the line, but Dylan Moore, Jared Kelenic, they have a tough time getting on base. Very feast or famine lineup, even with Ty France hitting about a 275. And for the Mariners, I think that they learned from the mistake of Game 1 of sticking a starter in a relief role. This is a team that during the regular season had a top 8 bullpen in terms of ERA. You've got Penn Murphy, Andres Munoz, Paul Sewald, Eric Swanson, all with a sub-3 ERA during the regular season. Now, Sewald, it's been a little bit of a hot mess during the postseason, but that said, Matthew Boyd, Matt Brash, they do a solid job of shoring up this bullpen. And for the Houston Astros, top bullpen in terms of ERA in the big leagues. You've got so many guys like Rafael Montero, Brian Abreu, Ryan Stanek, all posting up a sub-2 ERA. Seth Martinez was as well. He got left off the roster in this one, but still, even someone like Hector Neris is able to come in, do a relatively solid job for this bunch. And then I do think that on the flip side, Luis Castillo going to be able to give another nice start. He was a little bit shaky towards back half of the regular season, but we saw him in the postseason in that start against the Blue Jays. 7 1/3 innings scoreless. He has been absolutely masterful, and this is a guy that all season long he has given up 3 earned runs or fewer in all but 3 of his starts since the beginning of the month of July, so has been relatively consistent. His strikeout numbers are a little bit down this season. He still was able to get right around 10 punch-outs per 9 innings during the regular season, but what has been really good about him actually tipping the strikeouts a little bit recently is that the walks have went down as well. Only about 2.3 walks per 9 innings while he's been with the Seattle Mariners. That means that he should be able to deliver a little bit of length in this spot. And with the Houston Astros, offense is a little bit down from what it's been in the past. Still very much a fearsome bunch. Yordan Alvarez, he was dealing a little bit with ailment during the regular season, especially in the second half of the season. But as you could tell from Game 1, he is out fully healthy and he is back to the form that he had pre-All-Star break. And then you've got Alex Bregman, 365 on base, 23 home runs. Jose Altuve hitting at 328 bombs. Kyle Tucker, he hit about a 255 with 30 home runs and over 100 RBI as well. Very good lineup. Even someone like A.L. Mendizias is able to move the line. Yuli Gurriel, he had a home run in game number 1. So this Astros team is firing on all cylinders. But I think that you've got 2 starters that, in my opinion, they could go 6+ innings. These are some exceptions to the rule. I don't think that they are going to be getting the quick hook. I think that these guys deliver some length. I think that they pitch very, very well against feast or famine offenses. I'm going to be going with the under, but I do think that in the end, Houston is going to be able to get it done. And I do think that, as we saw in Game 1, managerial experience, that is going to be on the side of Houston. I'm willing to take them on the money line. And in terms of the DK Nation pick, it is on the under. And then 953, 954. The Cleveland Guardians, they're on the road. They're facing up against the New York Yankees as Juan Nestor Cortez is going to be going for the Yankees. Shane Bieber has a fever for getting outs for the Cleveland Guardians. And the Guardians, as of right now, you're finding them anywhere between plus 118 and plus 124 underdogs. And with the Yankees, it's anywhere between minus 130 and minus 140. 6.5 to 6 is your total on the 6. Over is minus 120 and the under is even. On the 6.5, under is minus 120 and the over is even. And we're going to go with the over. I set my total more around to 6.7. I do think that the Cleveland Guardians going to be able to bust out with the bats, as it's been a little bit lean for them this offseason. They combined 4 runs in 3 games, but you still do have a Guardians team that, as we pointed out with Ariel, they do the best job of not striking out of any team in the big leagues, fewest strikeouts on a per at-bat and a per-game basis. And still have 5 guys that during the regular season hit at least a 280 for this bunch: Steven Kwan, Oscar Gonzalez, Jose Ramirez, Andres Jimenez, and Amed Rosario. Not a lot of power when it comes to Cleveland Guardians, as they were second lowest in the big leagues in terms of overall home runs, but you still had Ramirez give you over 125 RBI, 29 home runs. He's been able to do a solid job. Oscar Gonzalez has picked up a little bit in terms of power as well. And then Josh Naylor, he does a good job of being able to move the line. He had 20 home runs. He's able to hit a 250 as well. Now, Guardians, best bullpen ERA in the big leagues post-All-Star break, as Emmanuel Clase, James Karinchak. Best 8th and 9th inning duo that you're going to find in all the big leagues, as both of these guys posted up a sub-2 ERA. Sam Entiges, Aniel de los Santos, Trevor Steven, all these guys a sub-3 ERA. They are without Nick Sandlin, though, so that does hurt them just a little bit. Instead, they had to add Cody Morris to the roster. And then for the New York Yankees, no doubt this has been a solid bullpen of their own, a top 6 bullpen in terms of ERA all season long. Aroldis Chapman is out of the fold. That's not necessarily too much of a downgrade. They instead added Miguel Castro, who I honestly think is a little bit better. Lou Trevino in a Yankees uniform, so they will supply a sub-2 ERA, but I do have a little bit of concern as to both Nestor Cortez along with Shane Bieber in this spot. Now, Nestor Cortez was very good towards back half of the season. A combined 2 runs allowed in his final 4 starts, and as a matter of fact, a combined 6 runs allowed in his final 6 starts. So he was able to do a very solid job on that front. That said, he's really never been in this big of a spot before. $1.95 home ERA compared to a 3.06 road ERA, but his ball's in play. He got very much lucky during the regular season. I do think that the Guardians going to do a good job of being able to stave those off. And with Shane Bieber, he's got some numbers during the postseason that, well, they just have not been savory, to say the least. I know that Ariel pointed out he's got that albatross of a start that he had against the New York Yankees a few seasons ago. Now, overall, has been able to do a rock-solid job on the road. A 2.65 road ERA thus far this season, giving up 11 home runs in over 119 innings. So his home runs per 9 rate right around about a 0.8 on the road thus far this season. Strikeout numbers are down from what they've been in the past, more like 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, but command is relatively solid. But I do think that the New York Yankees are going to be able to get to him, even with it being a little bit colder out there in New York. This is just a ballpark that in general lends itself to home runs. Anthony Rizzo was able to crank one out. He and Giancarlo Stanton during the regular season and combined 63 home runs. Now, both of these guys, the much maligned Aaron Hicks, hit a 230 or lower during the regular season, including Josh Donaldson, who he very much celebrated that single that he got thrown out on as well. But that also shows, because that Donaldson ball was not necessarily hit the world's greatest, just how shallow of a ballpark this is. Aaron Judge, as we know, Mr. 62 home runs, had a little bit of a rough go of it in game 1. I do think that he's going to be able to bounce back. And Gleyber Torres, bit of an underrated bat as well, hitting a little bit north of a 255 during the regular season, 24 home runs. This is a Yankees lineup that is back at full force. They were averaging right around 5 runs per game at home. I do think that they're going to be able to get to Shane Bieber. I do think that it's going to be still a little bit of a lower scoring game. I just think that especially with the 6 that we're seeing at DraftKings, this has gotten down too low. Even at a 6.5, I'm willing to take it over. That is the DK Nation pick. And then when it comes to the side, I set the Guardians at a plus 125. I anticipate this being a play on the Guardians when it's all said and done. Currently, like I said, we're seeing a max of a plus 124. If I had to go with anything right now, I'd be going with that plus 124. I'm going to be waiting this out personally a little bit, thinking that we're going to get a better price on the Cleveland Guardians in the AM. Now, it could be a case in which money does come in on the Cleveland Guardians. I would be quite shocked if that is the case, but I'll be waiting this out. Most likely going to be a Guardians money line play unless if we see a complete reversal in the way that the money is coming in terms of the New York Yankees. So looking at the Guardians with a plus price, and it's going to be on the over, and that'll wrap things up for the Thursday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. A big thanks to Ariel Epstein. Does great work over at Yahoo Sportsbook along with MLB Network. She joined me in the last segment. If you do like sharing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you've got a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, You have one of two ways to be able to fill those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at Janet_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way, that is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast. Find that 5-star review. I'm coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season. That means I'm coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.